Welcome to Smokin with Swami. I'm Swami Chaitanya.
Hey, and I'm Nikki, and we have a really great guest tonight.
Wait, don't forget Tipu the Wonder Dog.
Of course, Tipu the Wonder Dog.
Okay.
That goes without saying. But Carolyn Francesi here, who is like the mistress of knowing cannabis in the world. She is like, this woman can look at your cannabis and tell you exactly what is going on there, how good it is. She worked for many, many years at Harborside as their chief buyer. Is that the name of it? They called you something like that. And she's just, this woman has a nose, an eye, and even an ear for cannabis.
Yeah, she also has a huge, awareness of any mold or mildew. Like
oh,
she's got this
moldar.
sense about moldar, totally. So
belief.
anyway, Caroline, we invited Caroline on to the show so she can talk to everyone who actually is a newbie and wants to bring something to a dispensary. What are dispensaries looking for? People come up and say, Swami, I took the dispensary, and they said, oh, get out of here. Or they said, I don't want any of this, or we got plenty of sun, or whatever. What happens when you go into a dispensary?
Well, I would say one of the things that, is important to mention is that when you walk in, you're walking into a market, right? The person who's the buyer should know their market, and so they'll know in your approach that when you come in, whether what you have suits their market or not. But the one most important thing, I would say, it could look like, can we curse or no?
No.
It could look like
Poop.
poo.
Yeah.
And smell like the come smoke me smell. Like that. Something that's well cared for, even though perhaps, the aesthetics got messed up. They're going to look for smell.
Oh, okay. More than looks. More than looks, they're looking for smell.
Well, I did, because I, as a consumer of both garbage and good, and had to be able to smoke really bad herb to get the appreciation for good herb.
Yeah.
When it tasted good and smelled good, and then the combination of the smoke, that's a pleasure. So, at some point it's going to go into some kind of, whether it's made into hash or rolled into joints as buds, that's important.
Yeah. So when we would bring stuff into you, the first thing she would always do is open up the bag and basically stick her head in it.
Right.
Right? Now you get a little view of what the buds look like in the bulk, but it just seemed to me always the very first thing for you was the smell. Boom, bada, boom. And that's terpenes by and large, but it's also telling you a lot about if it doesn't have much smell, then obviously the person growing it didn't really quite know how to totally empower the plant, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
Good way
or
to put
finish
it.
it.
Yeah.
And finish it, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's in the Emerald Cup also. If we get a sample and has absolutely no smell, well, I'm sorry, friend, but you kind of just didn't do it.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's the very first thing. Then once you start, what do you care about? Trim? How does that look?
Oh, you mean for the actual physical?
The buds,
yeah. How important is that?
It's important that it looks as if you cared for it, whether you paid somebody or you yourself did it. It wasn't a rush job. You took into consideration what the flower was, what it should look like. Because if you look at a sour diesel, sometimes it looks better to have little bits of green. It gives it like a texture, a character.
Right.
And then others, if you
different strains have a different look. Some really look like a solid Christmas tree, and others are kind of scrankly, and so on. And
scrankly, I like that.
Well, and the fact, but that doesn't mean it's bad cannabis at all. Some strains actually look like that when they're at their best.
Yeah. Yeah, the aesthetics is part of it.
So we're also talking about, as a just like a cold call, whatever. It's probably best if you're trying to go to a dispensary is try and make an appointment with the buyer.
Let's face facts. It's really best if you have a connection.
Well,
it's true.
You got to know somebody who knows somebody.
It really helps if you can find any sort of connection to get yourself in the door to the dispensary, because there's a lot of competition out there.
Yeah, but any buyer that's worth their salt is going to know good product when it comes.
Yeah.
You should have your, people who spend forward, but you always have time for the randos. There's always going to be somebody who comes out of the woodwork who had a great run, and sometimes they don't even know it, and those are the ones where that's a gem. So I think both. I think who if you know somebody's a good grower, you're going to hope that the people who they say are good growers, because they're also smokers, right?
Right.
So that's also part of buying herb, is that you have to, at some point, you're not going to be able to try all of it,
right?
But you're going to be able to.
You know which ones you need to try.
Yeah, the come smoke me ones.
Yeah, right. But see, now you would see stuff from all over the state, right? You would get stuff from Grass Valley. You would get stuff from Mendo and Humboldt, and where else would stuff come into at Harborside where you were?
Oh, we've had as far south as San Diego area.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, avocado farmer. He used to come in. He had great avocados.
The pot wasn't so good.
You were out there. I miss your avocados.
So, yeah. But there are definitely differences also between how cannabis grown up in Grass Valley and the mountains in the foothills of the Sierras looks different from Mendo. Would you say? Yeah, that's what.
Once you got used to a harvest, you could see what was coming in.
Right, for that particular year.
Because sometimes we would get people, like I said, we would keep it open for people, not only people we knew that from as a friend to a friend, but somebody who was brand new face.
Just random, yeah.
One of the things you have to take into consideration is they're trying to sell their product. And so you keep those quality measures in mind when they come in.
Right.
So then...
that must be the hardest job in the world to have to tell them now.
What was the question?
Well, just the different, how cannabis from Grass Valley would look different from Mendo.
It took seasons for me to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
But there is. And it's also, it goes with season and what's happening in their... the direct environment. Remember when there were all those fires up there?
Yes, right.
And everybody was worried about the cloud cover and, whenever there's a drought and then sometimes you get parallels with other crops too. But it took time. But yeah, there is a difference.
We find that with judging.
Could you put that in words? How the difference between them? Maybe not, but...
I would say it would be more... you could if you were
shape and
describing the
color?
look. If you were describing the look and the smell and the strains. I always liked seeing, pot from different areas in the state because one group would have one set of genetics and another would have another, and then you can always find those like pearls inside.
Yeah,
right.
So what also about like wine, grapes? Different years have different qualities, and so a certain vintage will be famous, and just about every grower of wine grapes will say, okay, it was my best year, and then the next year won't be so good. Is that much difference in cannabis from year to year? The whole harvest?
Yeah, for sure.
No, because I think this last year for me, smoking was your best year.
Uh-huh.
This I will remember. Remember I sent you, I was like, I tried this Swami sativa, and it was like, it was like far out, trippy, excellent, wonderful feeling, and a pleasure to smoke, and a pleasure to roll. As it got older, it got stickier too, and so then we look, there's a parallel.
As the farmers, we look, okay, so what did we do different? Well, what nature did different was the drought.
Right.
There was less water last year, so our plants were smaller than usual, but the quality was really great. And I guess they kind of like to be starved from water in a sense.
Well, I think wine grapes are the same because certain years where there's a less yield, fewer pounds, right? There's actually a richer sugar content often, right? Yeah. And those years when there's like a lot of grapes, they're all a little more diluted because they've had so much water and it's not as rich. And so different people like those different things. But years, and I think over time...
Like after the fires years? I mean, what we always found was, you kind of expected, it won't be, somebody's going to mess up now. But actually, there was more nitrogen in the air.
Carbon,
okay, and it would actually improve if you didn't have too much.
The most
if you didn't have too much, it made it better.
Kind of like when they do burn CO2 indoors to create, like
they really?
They do.
Really?
They do. They'll burn it indoors. So perhaps.
Yeah. So there was so smoky here for almost 3 weeks. You could hardly see 300 yards.
We actually had a little mass on out in the garden working.
Yeah, no, it was really smoky. I mean, and we couldn't even see the Emerald Triangle right there. And so, but that year we had our only 4-pound plant and 3.5 pound plants. Somehow the carbon in the air made the plants grow bigger.
Wow.
I wouldn't say they were really stronger, but there's always that kind of trade-off, big size or potency,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
So any other tips you'd have for someone, first of all, try and get a contact, try and get a connection, right? If you know somebody, get an introduction, or try and make an appointment, right? And then come in with your best smelling stuff and bring your best stuff.
Now let me just ask you some basic questions, and we might, just for other people. So do you want somebody to bring in a full pound or to bring in just a little sample?
No, I mean, if you're, you're
bring
asking
in a full pound.
You're talking to me?
Yeah,
you're talking to me.
I'm talking to you.
You're talking to me? All right, so, I would want to see the pound.
Because
you're going to cherry pick, the best buds.
Right.
And,
Right.
And, it's good to see representation because
And you might just buy the whole thing right there.
You know, it's also like, you know, when you take into consideration, like one thing that would happen in the city in Oakland is that purples would be like unrelentingly awful. And
Yes.
most of them were indoor and like to the grower. Really dense little nuts, but there are these like constituents, like it has to be a certain size, it has to be a nickel or less, right? Which I get is like a standard. However, when it comes to like, you know, certain flavors that come with the flower, it's also to get to know the strain. So, you know, having variety in the market, that's good. If you're, you know, thinking of branching out, yeah, have a variety, but also have your, you know, tried and true strains, ones that, you know, you stick
Now you
with
said the nickel thing also. That's one of these, most dispensaries want your buds at least as big as a nickel, not smaller than a nickel.
But what about the strains that don't do that?
I know.
So an intelligent buyer will know that that strain actually doesn't do that. That's what that strain is.
And if it's purple, shit.
Forget it. It's never going to go stony.
Then it's no good? Purple?
No, purple is. In fact,
beautiful,
it's a beautiful. It's very it's really popular in the Bay, and you know, in certain pockets and markets. In fact, if you don't have a purple on your board, you get dinged.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that's hard is like, you know, I tell outdoor folks, like, you know, it's not easy to get full sun outdoor to turn purple. And it's not easy to do it indoor, but you're going to have it happen a lot quicker indoor, so it just still happens to be an indoor-friendly strain.
My purple plants show purple really early in the season.
When they're purple, yeah.
Because they're purple. Now, a lot of plants, when it frosts late in October, they'll get slightly purple, right? But the really purple ones, they show purple on the branches and the stems early on. Maybe not early on, but certainly by early August, they show the purple.
But they certainly never win the cup. They might be the most beautiful, but they just, the high's not there.
Well, so now as a prospective, you know, vendor, seller, what should they bring? Should they bring their sativa? Should they bring their indica? You know, does that depend on where they're bringing it? Maybe Silicon Valley wants sativa, maybe Oakland wants indica. I don't know. What would you think?
You know, you want to make your trip lucrative. If you're going to come to an area that has a lot of dispensaries, you got to plan for rejection. You got to plan for like, okay, if this one turns me down, there's 3 others. So come with multiple appointments. Come with the best representation of what you have. Make it worthwhile for the distance of the trip, and also take into consideration, you know, you're traveling through conservative counties, so you also have to be smart about how you.
Right.
You know,
good advice.
You do that. So, but I would say bring the best of what you've got, obviously.
Right.
And
probably a sense of humor helps.
Well, you can't take your product too seriously. You really have to know its fault.
Yeah,
right.
You know,
but everybody coming in there's always nervous, you know, because likewise,
most
all the dispensaries now, they pull out a couple buds and they send it off for testing, right? And so it's testing for pesticides, mold and mildew and all that sort of stuff. And you know, you have to check yourself, but you know, there's always a certain sort of, wow, they're gonna like my cannabis, you know, and that every grower goes through that, no matter what.
You get Caroline's nose in there. God, she'll find anything.
Well, I respect the risk that people take, you know.
Yeah.
You know, if you're coming in and you got the balls to come in, I'm definitely gonna give you the respect. When I was working in an organization, you know, I wanted people to feel comfortable. And then the ones who were really bad, I wanted them to feel uncomfortable and then go.
Right. But then, you know, sometimes the buyer will say, well, look, we have a ton of outdoor sativa. We don't need any more outdoor sativa. And that may be actually literally true on terms of what they bought in the last couple of weeks. They overbought of that.
When we moved to the phone, we could do that. Whereas, like, we were free
for
from phone. There was no
phone.
phone. There was no email. We just had open vending hours.
Right.
Sometimes
no, I remember you coming, waiting like 45
Right.
minutes, almost an hour, just to come in and see the buyer in the early days.
And then once we organized and we felt comfortable after, you know, a certain amount of time with whether it was like political pressure,
the phone and all
like
that, right,
whatever.
Right.
Eventually, we got over it, and that made a difference. With people could call, they could, you know, be out in the middle of the woods and drive to the top of their ridge, like, do you need any of that?
You're right, exactly. I got some real good sativa, I got a real blend or something.
And that's helpful.
Yeah, no, it's very helpful because that means save you the trip that you come down, because no, we don't, you know, and say, hey, listen, we bought a lot of sun-grown in the last couple of weeks, we really don't need any more. Well, that's probably true, actually, and especially if you didn't make an appointment. And they say, well, okay, well, come back in a couple of weeks, and that's also probably true. You know, maybe in a couple of weeks they will have sold out. So don't give up the first time you come in, right? Just come back and try and make a connection. You've broken the ice, right?
You have, and hopefully, the buyer is conscientious. You're ultimately going to establish a relationship. If there is quality, there will be times things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And such as farming.
Right.
Yeah, and that you want to maintain the relationships. That was a big that was a big thing with.
But see, you would also go out and visit the farmers.
Yeah,
right?
I went.
So you would see the farms and see how they had their operation and so on. And so and that's the way our industry's always been. It's always based on trust and face to face and so on and so forth. And so that's the thing. The if you're trying to sell your cannabis, you also have to take a little sympathy for the person who's buying, because they see 5% jerks who come in, and you gotta be kind and be polite and so on. But here's someone's really giving you grief because you're not buying their cannabis. And so on. So anyway, I guess we're kind of running.
Great.
This is great. We're running out of time
here.
We gotta
thank
say.
you, Caroline.
So thank you very much, Caroline.
Yes,
and
we love you.
Should we bring it in?
Yeah, bring it in.